afternoon, and welcome to the webinar, The Impact of Ever-Changing Requirements and Why Word and Excel are Mismanaging Your Requirements. My name is Fernando Valera. I'm CTO at Visual Solutions, and I will be conducting today's webinar. This will be a 1-hour webinar. Throughout the whole webinar, you will be muted, but you will be able to post your questions in the panel you will find at the right-hand side. So please feel free to post any question throughout the webinar in that panel. We will leave some time at the end of the session for the Q&A. So please, any question, any comment, I'll be happy to address them at the end of the presentation. So today's agenda, I'll make a brief introduction to Visual Solutions for those of you who haven't heard much about us. We will review the importance of getting requirements right from day one. I'm pretty sure we are all very well aware of it, but it's always good to review those things, analyzing the limitations of managing requirements manually. Same thing, but it's always good to recap hints and tips on how to turn Word and Excel into better, smarter way to manage your requirements. And now it's getting interesting, and then managing the impact of ever-changing requirements. And if we have time, hopefully we will go into the details of this requirements and how we deal with the requirements lifecycle, and we deal with changes within this requirements. So who are we? Who's Visual Solutions? Visual Solutions is a company focused and specialized in the field of requirements management and requirements engineering. We are experts in the field. We provide this requirements, our platform for the whole requirements lifecycle. But on top of that, we provide consulting and training services. For instance, we are IREP certified training providers, meaning that we are able to provide training in North America, Central South America, Europe, and Asia. And for those of you who are not aware of the IREP, it's a certification for requirements engineering. IREP stands for International Requirements Engineering Board. It's just a certification for requirements experts, requirements engineers that have been working with requirements for more than 5 years. You just get a stamp and certified in the area. Apart from the and as you will have guessed, the headquarters are located in San Francisco, but we also have offices in other places, including London, the UK, Madrid, Spain, and in Germany. So let's move on and take a look at how is the world changing. How's the world now? I'm pretty sure you've seen this slide before in LinkedIn or any of the social media about Uber. And if you think about it, it's right now the world's largest taxi company, but they own no vehicles. Facebook is the world's most popular media provider, but they generate no content on their own. Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider, and they own no real estate. And Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory, right? So this makes us think that the world is changing, and it's definitely not a matter of not owning assets. It's definitely not that. But I attended a venture capital event the other day, and the companies that we used to be familiar with, that have been there for more than 50 years, the Walmarts and Hiltons and Hertz and all those. Right now, Uber or Facebook, they're worth 40 billion companies, and they've grown They've been there for 8 years, in some cases 5 years, 7 years, and they're worth twice as much as companies that have been there for 50 years. So the world is changing. It's changing really fast. It's changing really fast. And it's not a matter of not owing things, but it's definitely a matter of forgetting about the traditional way in which we interacted with our customers. We are no longer selling products. We're no longer selling features, but we should actually focus on selling business value. If you think about it, all these companies and the way companies are relating with our customers is by providing a service, providing an added value. And I would like to take the example of Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is the largest manufacturer of aircraft engines. Well, Rolls-Royce is actually selling a very, very small amount of engines per year. Most of the year, actually, only 20% of the engines they produce per year are sold. 80% of the year of the business comes from renting the engines. They rent horsepower per hour. And that makes you think, oh, wow, so that is a business model. But then what Rolls-Royce is doing is that they're collecting all the data from the engine, and they are sending all this data to telemetric to data centers, the biggest being in Dubai in the UK, sending all this data and analyzing the data of the engine on the fly, so that if there is a problem in the engine, they're able to deliver a part of the engine that's failing straight to the destination of the aircraft, even before the captain knows there's a failure, even before the airline knows there's a failure in the engine, so that when the aircraft lands, the piece is already there, saving time to the airline, saving money, and provided an added value maintenance service. Taking this into account, as you can imagine, there's no way in which you can reject hiring that maintenance service from Rolls-Royce. So they are actually providing an added business value. So basically, what we see is that things are changing. I used to have a slide where I had the percentage of requirements that changed over time, but I was changing this slide in every single presentation, because there were new researchers saying that the requirements changed faster, they're changing more, until I said, hey, I'll just take it away from the slide deck. Yeah. And let's just state that requirements, it's incredible. They at the moment you end up reading the requirement, it has already changed, right? We already have one question, and the question is whether the slide deck will be available. This webinar is being recorded, and you will all receive an email, a follow-up email with the download link, so that you will be able to review the whole presentation. So going back to the presentation. So in this new world in which we are completely changing the way in which we offer products, we offer services, and the way in which we relate with the customer. If we transition to a service-oriented kind of business, our relationship to the customer changes enormously, which means that we need to adapt even more to changes in the needs of the customers, and therefore the requirements will be changing even more often and quicker, because the needs are changing so fast. Not only the needs are changing, but also the systems that we're putting in place are far more complex. It's no longer a product that we just sell and forget about it. The only thing we have to be concerned about is just the maintenance. But now everything is connected. We now need to deal with a lot more standards, regulations, norms. We need to be concerned about a lot of networks and connectivity between the different systems. We need to be concerned about the security, about not being hacked. So basically, there's a plethora of systems that are communicated. So the complexity is enormous, and it's changing all the time. So one of the things we need to make sure is that when we deliver the system, we make sure that it's still meeting our customer needs. So this is basically what we are trying to address today: how to be able to deliver something, and by the time we just release it, it's still meeting the customer needs. It's also interesting, this statistic from the FDA that indicates that almost 80% of the software failures are introduced when changes are made to the software, indicating that we are able to somehow deliver a first version of the system, but it's just when we make changes to it, then when we actually forget about changing something, we miss things, and when errors are introduced in there. So, nowadays the systems are changing so much. We can no longer start or keep on using the same methods, techniques, and tools. Actually, we are introducing more and more iterative methodologies, agile, and so on. And we are starting to figure out that we can no longer keep on using Word and Excel. And this is a very, very common situation where we started a system and we started doing our specifications. And actually, from my point of view, one of the main reasons why we use Word and Excel is because in the standard, they just indicate that you need to provide a requirement specification document. So just that simple word stated in the standard just drove all of us to stop writing Word documents where actually that's only an output that we should be getting. The fact is that most companies have been dealing with the specs and the requirements in Word for many years, and then we just have a meeting where we discuss the spec, make sure that everybody is on board. Someone pulls a PowerPoint, and first surprise, there's a bullet point in there nobody ever heard about. It's not in the spec, and somehow we need to get in the spec. So we just generate a second version of the spec with the updated bullet point, no problem. And we even start tracing those requirements to the test cases. We start assigning them, but then we've got this phenomenal phone call from the customer. But the customer is actually referring to the first version because somehow we missed to communicate, collaborate, or whatever, the second version of the Word document. So what do? We have another meeting. Out of the meeting, we have lots of meeting minutes, everybody referring to different documents, and still we have another email from the customer referring to the test cases, to documents, and then change requests, and more phone calls, more emails, and basically it's what I call the defective time bomb. Using Word and Excel for your requirements, it's pretty much like dealing with a defective time bomb. You know it's going to explode at some point. The problem is that you never know when, right? Because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger with different versions. So what do we need to do? What we'll see today is that in order to deal with the changes, one of the first steps is to centralize all the information, getting everything sorted out organized, be able to collaborate, which means that having all the information in one single source that everybody can point to, everybody can check, make sure that there's only one version 1, only one version 2. Even though this sounds obvious, it's not always that obvious. Something that we can validate and we can report on. So that would be the first step. And then we'll be prepared to deal with the life cycle traceability. So the traceability is the one single one single way that will allow us to deal with changes. So the traceability will be the tool that we will use to answer questions like, do we still meet all the customer requirements when we change a system specification or a software requirement? And being able to not only take our developers and ask them whether we're still meeting the customer requirements, we need to provide evidence that that is so. So it's not just us putting pressure on the people, but be able to demonstrate that this is so. Will the same verification criteria still apply? Are all my requirements covered by tests? So if we make a change in the system requirements, will all the tests still apply? The same tests? How many tests do we need to change, modify, add, or delete? And even though all of these questions sound absolutely obvious, the fact is that in reality, we fail to demonstrate and to answer some of these questions. So how should life cycle traceability look like? So one of the things we spoke about at the beginning was that we're introducing different iterative methodologies. We're introducing Agile, different types of Agile, Scrum, Kanban, whatever. Whatever methodology you're using, traceability is there. Whether you're tracing user requirements to system requirements, whether you're tracing your user stories to tasks and test cases, traceability is there, will be there, and needs to be maintained, whatever you're doing. And it should look pretty much like this. So whether we've got a user requirement specification at the left-hand side, or we've got the list of user stories, I don't care. We just need to be able to pick one item and know how many system requirements or tasks are traced to it, how many test cases or design requirements and tests are covered or impacted by that change. So this will be the key for change management, quality, and compliance. So traceability, not only establishing traceability, but maintaining traceability throughout the life cycle will be absolutely key. And the key in this will be, for those of you using Word and Excel, be able to establish a round-trip integration with Office, and this is one of the things we will review during the demo, how to integrate with Word and Excel to transition smoothly from a document-oriented approach to a professional tool like a visual requirement. I would like to take the opportunity to remind all of you that there is a questions panel at the right-hand side. Feel free to post your questions at any moment throughout the webinar. Right now, everything we have seen is pretty obvious. I'm pretty sure we're all on the same page, and it'll get more interesting as we transition to the demo. Let's take a look at the effective management of changes. So we recognize the importance of requirements. We recognize the importance of managing the changes. But how do we do that in an organized way? There are 3 steps to organized change management. The first one being preparing for changes, because we know changes will come. And the best thing we can do in this life is prepare for them. Second step is managing the changes once they come. And the third one is being able to implement them appropriately and in a 360 way, meaning that we shouldn't be leaving anything out of that impact analysis and that implementation. Let's take a look at each one of these steps, and then we'll take a look at them in the tool. So how do we prepare for changes? So we mentioned before that traceability will be the one single and the most important way or tool to manage the changes. So the first thing is defining and enforcing a traceability policy. So those two aspects are absolutely key. The first one, defining, which means that you should be able to describe and populate throughout the company one single way of working with the different artifacts and the traceability. So this is a what we call a data model in visual requirements, which is basically describing the different element types. In here, we're representing a V life cycle, but it could be an agile approach, as I mentioned earlier, where, for instance, in here we have the user requirements at the top left corner that are satisfied by system requirements and satisfied by component requirements and the corresponding test cases, and then the traceability between all of them. So whatever traceability this is just an example. And clicking on a button, you can enforce that people will only be able to create this element types and this traceability. So being customizable, you can also enforce it so people can only establish what you should be doing. But also, you want to define which elements can actually have change requests. So this is an example where we include an element type called change request, trace to the user requirements, system requirements, and component requirements. Today's demo, we will review the change management process completely within Vision requirements. But one of the cool things about Vision is that we have an integration with Jira that allows just changing this item type change request, a Vision change request with a Jira change request, and tracing to the specific element versions that we are that are impacted by this change request bidirectionally and so on. Today we'll focus on Vision requirements. So this is the first step, defining this change management process and enforcing it. Second one, defining a review and approval workflows for those change requests. This is also a workflow support inside this requirement, where we have the different states of which a change request can go through, the transitions that can be performed, and we can also define who can approve, who can reject a change request. So for instance, a project manager, product manager, system engineer will be able to do something like that. And within the transitions, we can define and automate actions like sending emails or inheriting new attributes or whatever we would like that requirement to do when it's transitioned to that state. So those are the first two aspects, preparing for the changes, defining the traceability, and defining the approval and review workflow for the changes. Second step will be managing the changes, right? So so whenever we receive a change request, we need to check the impact of that change. So this is something that we will end up doing, whether it's before addressing the change or after, while we are performing the change. So this is something that sooner or later we'll have to do, and the sooner the better. So we should have something like this, a traceability view where we have the impacted elements, in this case the user requirement, a system requirement with the related system test, a component requirements with component tests. Basically a view where we can see all the impacted elements, whether they are different level requirements, test cases, but also things like risks or any other artifacts we might have in the database. So remember, we are using a professional tool with all the artifacts in the database, and it's just a matter of representing that impact in the view. And the third step, implementing the changes. So we have reviewed the cost of a change, we have accepted the cost, and now we want to implement it. So the first thing will be making sure that all the elements are appropriately changed. So we will make use of what we call the suspect links. Some of you will be well aware of this capability. For those of you who are not, it's very simple. It's just highlighting in red or highlighting somehow all the elements that are directly impacted by requirements that we have modified. So if we modify a requirement, we change the description, for instance, all the elements that are traced to it will be highlighted in red. So if we see a red element, the only thing that we'll have to do is review it, see if we have to modify something. If we do not have to modify something because it's still applicable, we just delete the suspect or the suspicion and we move on. In the case we need to modify it, we just change the description and a whole new set of requirements will automatically become suspect. So it propagates, changes will be propagating throughout the database. So this is a very effective way of making sure that everything will be changed and nothing will be left out. And this is how the suspect links look inside this requirement. Good. So let's move on to the demo. Let's see that all this is actually true, that it makes sense, and that's it. So I'll go through the demo in 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll leave 10 minutes for Q&A. So please just don't forget to post your questions in the panel on the right-hand side. Good. So this is visual requirements, and here we have a user requirement spec. So pretty much like a Word document. Each one of the requirements is an individual item with custom IDs, unique identifiers, name, RTF description, where we will be able to embed images, but also OLE objects. We can include a visual diagram in there just by drag and dropping, so that everybody will be able to double click on it and open it. Custom attributes, for instance, this is just a high, medium, low kind of attribute. And also here we've got the another custom attribute like the status. And if I double click on the ready for review, I can transition to reviewed, and from reviewed, I can transition to another level of values. This means that there's a workflow behind this requirement, this workflow, this attribute. Good. So let's review the first step of the change management process, which was the data model, the database's data model. So in order to do this, I'll open this diagrams, and what you can see here is that in this project we have a full list of diagrams. We've got diagrams for the software development, agile. We have another one for the issue tracking, the requirements process, risk analysis, test results, use cases. So these diagrams are completely user definable. You define your diagrams, and these diagrams define the different artifacts and the traceability between them. So this one, the requirements process, this box in here is the user requirements box. And this box actually contains the user requirements. So all the requirements in the document we have just seen is located inside this box. What we're saying in this diagram is that all those requirements should be decomposed into system requirements. So there's actually a document in here, inside this box, that should be traced to this one. So we'll see that there's actually traceability in there. The system requirements decomposed into component requirements in each one of those levels to the corresponding test cases. We also see there's another type of relationship in here, indicating that component requirements can be divided into mechanical, electrical, and software requirements. It's just a generalization. It's this element type is decomposed into, is divided into different types. And finally, we've got the change requests in here. So we have decided that in this project, we can establish change requests over all the levels, user, system, and component requirements. So anybody or the authorized users will be able to post change requests in here. Good. Let's quickly review some of the diagrams. Let's just take a look at the software development. So in this Lifecycle, we've got user, system, and component requirements, the software requirement level, but we're not enforcing any specific methodology for the software requirement. So we've got another diagram that takes the software requirements and divides them into, or allocates them into a product backlog composed of the epics, user stories, tests. So I just wanted to show you an example of the flexibility of this diagrams, where we will be able to represent whatever needs we have in terms of the requirements lifecycle and our development lifecycle. And the interesting thing is that we will be able to integrate these artifacts with other tools bidirectionally. So perhaps the tests within this block in here is automatically synchronized with a test management tool. So the only thing we need is the traceability in here. Perfect. So let's go to the user requirements. I'll select this active block and I'll navigate to the user requirements. So this is basically what I'm doing here, user requirements. Good. So before establishing a change request, over any of the elements, one of the things we spoke about was that perhaps we might not have the user requirements directly in the tool, right? We might have them in Word. So let's open this document in here. It's just a Word document. The user requirements, whatever spec. So there are several ways in which we can interact with the document. One of the ways is by importing elements from scratch. So if you've got a document and you only want to import some elements from the document, then only the shell statements, or you're just pausing and navigating through a document, and you identify a requirement and you would like to import into Visure, you can do something so as easy as just selecting the corresponding paragraph, go to whatever macro you define. You can reuse any of our existing macros and import it into Visure, and define this requirement proceeding to import, and just import the paragraph we've selected. If we go back to Visure, let's just refresh the view, and what we get is the requirement that I just selected. So what I did was that I linked, previous to the presentation, the Word document to our project, so that I could select and import elements straight away. I could just select any other paragraph and import this other paragraph in here exactly the same way. Good. And if I go back to Visure, I see that I have this other element in here. But this is a pretty manual process, and we might want to import the whole document, right? So what we can also do is import the whole document. So we go to the import capability. That will allow us to parse the whole document and import the requirements. Good. So I'll just select the document. Open. Next. So I've selected the document. I'm selecting the Microsoft Word format, and I'm going to select an existing configuration. I'll just guide through. I'll guide you through the configuration, but I don't want to spend time just clicking in the different aspects. We can import several different types of elements. I'll select requirements because that's what we want to import, and the way in which we identify requirements in the document is through the styles. So if we've got heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type of document, requirements written in normal text, then we just configure it. If we have different levels, we can configure the different levels of the hierarchy, and then we can configure the codes, the unique identifiers, whether we have unique identifiers in the Word document or we want to generate it while importing. And so with that configuration, what we get is the import tool starts parsing the document, identifies requirements, and here we have 17 captured requirements. Let's click on next. And this is a really interesting step. So what we've done is that we've parsed the Word document, identified requirements, and now we're checking the changes between the Word document, and the elements in the database. So here what we find is elements that have been modified, and let's check the difference to find out why it's different. So the difference between the element in the Word document and the database is the attribute priority. The database has high priority, the document has medium priority. So we're actually lowering the priority of the requirement, which actually is science fiction. You will never see this in real life. You know, it's always like high. Well, it's now extremely high. Well, now it's critical, right? So we can decide at this point what we want to do with these elements. We can either import them and overwrite or create a new version of the elements in the database, or what we can do is that we can import them as change requests. Whatever we want to do, let's just modify all this and create a new version of all those elements. Insert, and all these elements will be inserted in the database. There you go. 1 insert requirement and 3 updated requirements. Finish, close, another capture, no. Press F5, and there we go. Here we have the changes in the database with the new requirement, with the modified requirements, and so on. Good. So now we have imported requirements, we have changes, we have modifications, and one of the things we want to do is before creating the first baseline and then accepting change requests, is analyzing the quality of the requirements. So for that purpose, we've got what we call the the quality analyzer. So the quality analyzer is a module that reads requirements and analyzes them semantically. So through natural language processing, it will read the semantics and indicate whether elements are high quality, never happens, medium quality, or low quality. So here we've got this requirement which is low quality. Let's get into the detail and let's see what's wrong with it. So here we've got the requirement. In this we see that the frame is in red, indicating the low quality of the element. What are the specifics? Well, the first thing is that there are 3 ambiguous terms. So if I select the ambiguous terms, I can see them highlighted in the requirements description. It is normally necessary, at least. Let me just double click in here. At least and based on, completely ambiguous. Conditional mode, should, can, may, instead of shall statements. Escape clause sentences, for example, we've got to be extremely careful with that. Negative sentences, we've got to be careful with that. Also, especially working with Europeans, you're going to be extremely careful with that. Well, Europeans or not native speakers of English, because as you might know, in other languages, like French, German, Spanish, and so on, a double negative is just a super negative. It actually reinforces the negativity, whereas in English it's not always, but in most cases it's a positive. So in translation you can actually have a lot of confusion. So you got to be careful of that. Speculative sentences like it is normally necessary. So what is normal? Nobody knows what's normal. So you're highlighting aspects that are risks to the project, and even at the beginning of a project, even before creating the first baseline, and before accepting changes, you can correct those terms and then prepare for the first change. Good. Having seen the quality of the requirements, let's create a change request. It's 20 almost. It's almost 11:15. I'll go through the change request in 5 minutes, and I'll leave some time for the Q&A. So please. Don't hesitate to post your question in the panel on the right-hand side. Okay. Okay. So let's just select a couple of requirements throughout the spec. There's one, whatever elements we consider that might be impacted by a specific change. Hopefully, you'll be more careful than myself, and I'll just click in here. And I'll create a new change request. So here we've got different templates that we have predefined in this project. One of them being change requests. One of the things that the template includes is the fact that the new element will be automatically traced to the selected one. So here we've got 4 selected requirements. This 4. The unique identifier is pre-configured, and the name will be new API protocol changes, whatever. And here we've got the description. Even description can be predefined. So that for user stories or software requirements, or hardware requirements or system requirements, you have something like the system shall do something, or I as a whatever user, whatever. Description, change in the protocol calls. Okay, clicking OK. and I've created the change request. So we have been working with the requirements as a Word document so far, but the thing is that we're working on a database, and the way in which we can visualize requirements is completely up to the activity we are performing. So I've switched to a change requests view, which will not only display all the change requests, and here we've got the new API protocol changes, the one I just created, but it will display as a hierarchy all the affected elements. So here I'll see the 4 elements I selected are displayed in here. As simple as that. So we've got these 4 user requirements affected. But moreover, what is the impact of changing those 4 user requirements? If I continue expanding the tree, let's just expand this one. Hey, this custom requirement is decomposed into 3 system requirements, but this system requirement is decomposed into mechanical and software requirements in here. But also, all these are have affected test cases. But also, if I include the risks in here, I can display not only the affected requirements, but also the affected risks. So this custom requirement has a related risk, which has a mitigation action included in there. So I can do the 360 analysis of the impact of that change. Now I imagine I want to, we go through the whole process of accepting the change request. Because of time constraints, I'll just skip that part. But we already saw the workflows at the beginning of the presentation. What I'll do is that I'll just as an example, I'll modify this requirement checkout. I'll go to the description panel and include a change in here. All right. Good. So let's. The last thing I'll be showing, or one of the last things I'll be sharing, is the Spec links and the reporting. So this is one way of visualizing the report, the traceability, but it's not the only one. We've got different types of reports. Report, full traceability report. Reports to export the specifications into Word, obviously, but reports to show the status of the project, to show the requirements coverage, to show different aspects. I'll just show a couple of reports. One of them being the traceability report. So the reports are completely customizable. Component requirements, generate, and here we have. So the same way we displayed it in a hierarchical view within Visure, in the reporting, we can just export them as columns. So here we've got the user requirement. We can include the description, the attributes, whatever information we want, the component requirements, the verification, validation, all the test cases, all the information, and then we can export it to different folders like PDF, HTML, RTF, Word, and so on, right? As simple as that. Other reports, like requirements covered by tasks, indicating whether we've got a 50% coverage, 20% coverage, and how many requirements are we missing to test, for instance. Let's just select the component requirements as an example, generate. And here we've got each one of the component requirements with the related test cases. And we scroll down to the bottom of the report. We have the total number of requirements, with scenarios, without scenarios, the percentage of the coverage, and just a small dashboard on the representing the coverage ratio. Good. As we've seen that we can establish the traceability as simple as just creating an element and it'll be created automatically. We can represent the traceability in this view, but we can also report on the traceability in many different ways, in a traceability matrix, but also in a coverage report. But we spoke about the suspect links and how important those are for the change management process. So, and just to finish off, I'll select the this filter, the suspect links, and I'll display the elements in red color. So what we see in here is that because just for the fact that I traced the change request to some elements, they became automatically red. Just because I traced them to a task, to a change request. Let's go back to the to this view. To the user requirements view. So in here we see the document, and within the document the elements are highlighted in red, as you can see. Those are the elements that are suspect to change, right? So then I'll review each one of them one by one and deleting the suspicion or modifying the element. As I did with this element, I just made a change over this element. So if we go to the system requirement spec, I scroll down. What I see is a whole bunch of system requirements highlighted in red. Why? Because these elements are traced to the user requirements that I just modified. So what we have seen is that we are propagating the change throughout the life cycle to later stages. So we can guarantee that all the elements affected by a change directly and indirectly, which is the key point in here, are addressed within the change management process. So I'll switch back to the presentation and we'll go through some quick conclusions on why Word and Excel are not enough. Well, simple things like multiple multi-user access to the document, right? But that is something that is somehow addressed by Google Docs, right? But still, you need to have your requirements in somewhere else in the cloud. The traceability, there's no change impact analysis. We've seen something that is, if it's not impossible, it's close to madness to deal with so many traces, with maintaining traceability and the configuration management of individual elements. We need to be able to have a history over each one of the elements, why was modified when, which change requests are associated to that change, and so on. The reporting, if you deal with Word and Excel, that's the only reporting you will have, when sometimes what you need is a requirements coverage report. And one of the most important things is the process. You need to enforce the process, making sure that users are only creating the element types you defined and following the traceability, which is key, to be consistent. And to finish off, be able to integrate your tool with change management tools, issue tracking tools, test management tools, software verification, hardware verification, project management, and so on. So we still have time for some questions and answers. We've got 5 minutes. Please just post your questions here in the panel. So let me pull up the questions panel. There you go. Okay. So questions. I've seen that you have a risk management capability. Can you explain a little bit further? Yes. So basically, through the diagrams we saw, you can define whatever element types you want, and excuse me, I'll just go to the risk analysis. And actually, one of the most common activities is actually the risk management process. And through these diagrams, you can represent that those artifacts, risks, trace to the requirements, trace to mitigation actions, and so on. We do support FMEA. We support, for instance, the let's just go to a risk very quickly. And you can see that because I've got the suspect links activated, they're all in red because they're all somehow related to a modified requirement. Here we've got the severity occurrence detection, but this is something configurable for the risks. Automatically calculated RPN and automatically calculated risk level based on the RPN. Then we can just report on that. Then we have the traceability to the requirements and so on. Another question. Do you have integration with doors? Yes, we do have integration with doors. We actually have we do have a couple of integrations. One of them is a live link. So if you create an element inside any of the systems, it'll be automatically reflected in the other system. But we also have a full migration. So it's a capability to be able to switch off the DOS database. You just transition all the elements, all the artifacts in the database to the visual requirements and move on. Some other question, pricing. Well, I encourage you to get in touch with us. You can get in contact with us through info@fishsolutions.com. You can contact me directly, and we'll be more than glad to provide you with a quote. There's another question here. Can you comment on how the product works in a multiple user environment? Yes, absolutely. So basically, the way it works is that, and I'll switch back to the initial view. The way it works is through a check-in, check-out mechanism. So I just right-click, I check it in, and now it's available to the rest of the users to check it out. So at this point, nobody can modify it unless they check it out. So just right-click, check it out, and now I can modify it. It's blocked for me. So when you open the system, you log in with your user, and your user will have the corresponding access rights, will have the corresponding views, and a specific user interface. You can actually configure the user interface to display more or less features depending on your access right. And that is pretty much the way it works with multiple access to the requirements. And another question: is there an interface? Is there an interface for Linux? Right now, for Linux users, we have a lot of companies using remote desktop applications to connect from there, and they're working just fine. Actually, last week I was working with a medical device company in the certification for the FDA, generating the reports. The developers are working in Linux and accessing the database through the remote desktop, connecting, changing the requirements, and generating the reports. last question, the quality analyzer. I don't think we will be able to answer that one. Very quickly, the quality analyzer is just a natural language processing engine. We have an ontology behind. We read the requirements description, and based on that semantic, we based on 35 metrics, we analyze the ambiguity of the requirements. We analyze the conditional, terms, verb, tense. If the requirement is out of the scope based on the terms you are using the requirement, and so on. So based on the NASA terms, the ARM project, and some other terms of our own, we calculate that high, medium, low quality. So it's already 11 in Pacific time in San Francisco. I would like to thank you, all of you, for your time. We will be following up, sending you a link to the presentation and the video and the recording. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact us. And very important, have a great day and rest of the week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.